research review. So the paper is available. Peter attached to the invitation. So I will open up by give a brief introduction. Then Dr. Wu will take through the steps for the meta-analysis, including findings. I'll come back to talk about some discussion points. Then Dr. Reeves will talk about the future lines of work that we have been doing. So we only have 10 to 15 minutes, so we'll go through this pretty fast. So in terms of introduction, then, as we all know, teacher leadership has received increasing attention. So from the policy standpoint, from the practice standpoint, from the research standpoint, just look at the sheer volume that has been generated. It's really a growing field. Then many thanks to Peter and other colleagues really organizing this and to put this movement at the forefront of the scholarly endeavor. There's also a great cause for a focus on leadership for many reasons. One is we know principles alone cannot achieve school improvement. And also, if you look at staffing in practice, more and more teachers are taking various leadership roles, like here in the United States, and like coaches, mentors, facilitators, all these previously kind of add-on responsibilities. Now we have full-time positions for those jobs, and also for our work. We can approach this from a unique angle. For many of you know that in the United States, for the educational change initiatives in the last about 30 years, it has been dominated by the so-called loosely coupled educational system theory. So this loose coupling system kind of saying the educational system is so loosely coupled. So that's why we need to develop curriculum standard. After curriculum standard, we have statewide testing. With testing data, we develop evaluation mechanisms for teachers, principals, schools, so on and so forth. So the whole efforts for the last 25 years is really based on this loosely coupled theory. However, we did some national modeling and we kind of refined this theory and we developed a theory called bifurcation theory. What we found is from the state to the district to the school, the system is already tightly coupled. And it's the classrooms, actually, another entity, if you will, loosely attached from previous. So we use the so-called two tectonic plate as a metaphor. So education system is really the state, the district, the school is one huge tectonic plate, and the classroom is another one. So there's a fault line in between, and we feel actually that should be the focus for educational change initiative. Now, because of the fault line between those two tectonic plates, then it's quite reasonable to we use the word integrative school leadership and to integrate principal leadership and teacher leadership, and we feel it's really one important way to go. And that's kind of our angle toward leadership. Then that's one of the reasons why we did this meta-analysis. Then another introduction point is, as we all know, systemic research impacts of leadership still remain quite limited in our field. There are a few reviews along the way, but there has been, to our knowledge, there's been no meta-analysis, systemic analysis, meta-analysis that we have been doing here. So with that, then I will turn to Dr. Wu to talk about the steps of the studies as well as the findings. Dr. Wu, please.
So we reviewed the literature from four aspects. First, we reviewed how the school teacher leadership has evolved over time. Previously, teacher leadership were only considered as those teachers who have formal positions. And then, but nowadays, people are considering teacher leaders as teacher leadership as more of a shared responsibilities for school change, where school teachers share responsibilities in many aspects, such as redesigning schools, mentoring colleagues, and engaging in the school level policy makings. And the second aspect of our review is that we found that there is no common accepted definition of teacher leadership, and several theories such as distributed leadership, teacher empowerment, and teacher leadership were used to construct research around teacher leadership. And the third aspect is that we found that previous studies also focused on identify those dimensions that teachers can show their leadership. And in our study, we based on a set of review of empirical studies and professional standards, we also identified 7 dimensions of teacher leadership. The last review point is we found the research on the relationship between teacher leadership and student achievement is still very limited. That's we want to call for more studies on this, and then this study is focusing on provide a first kind of evidence for that link. So since one of our goal was to identify the dimensions of teacher leadership and find which dimension has largest association with student achievement based on a review of literature and professional standards, those are the 7 dimensions we have identified for the teacher leadership. Those are the areas that teachers can show their impacts on and can have a leadership on. And our study is a meta-analysis. So our inclusion criteria requires that a study to be included, they have to examine the relationship between teacher leadership and student achievement. And we operationalize defined teacher leaders as the teachers who maintain the K-12 classroom-based teaching responsibilities while also taking on leadership responsibilities outside of the classrooms. And we also required the studies to report sufficient information so that we can calculate the effect sizes and the standard errors. The search strategies, we identified a set of terms that are associated, related to teacher leadership and student achievement. And then we used those terms to search in multiple databases, including the ERIC, PsycInfo, Scopus, and etc. The search was conducted at December 2018, and we first identified 673 studies, and then after multiple rounds of screening, and we included 21 studies in our study. So each study and the effect sizes were coded for 5 aspects of information. First is the study characteristics, include, for example, the publication type, year, and where the study was conducted. And the second is the teacher leadership construct. We coded whether this study was constructed using this distributed leadership or teacher empowerment or the teacher leadership. And we also identified whether these effect sizes measure which dimensions of teacher leadership the effect sizes measures effect sizes for. And the third aspect is the student outcome measures. What is the type of outcome measures and in what content area the effect sizes is measured for. And we'll also have a sample informations and at which school levels and how large is the sample sizes. The last aspect is the effect size information and the associated standard error. So in terms of methods, we transformed all the effect sizes into a Pearson correlation coefficient, and we used the random effect models because that assumes that a true effect sizes follow a distribution rather than a fixed value. And in terms of the effect size interpretations, there are many benchmarks available, and one of a common one was the Cohen's, but more recently, Kraft has developed a benchmark to interpret the effect sizes in education or education interventions. But most researchers suggest that the interpretation of effect sizes should be determined by the field, should be based on the context. So based on a review of current benchmarks and also the typical effect sizes reported in education field, we interpret an effect size as about R equals to 0.2 as a desired teacher effect, and the effect sizes between 0.1 to 0.2 as still meaningful for practice in an education setting. So let's me show some results. And the first is an overall average effect between for the association between teacher leadership and the student achievement. We found that there is a positive correlation between teacher leadership and the student achievement, and the mean effect sizes was 0.1 at 7, and the effect sizes of teacher leadership is practically meaningful. And we also estimated the effect sizes by the subjects. We found that teacher leadership is positively associated with both reading and math achievement, and the effect sizes are pretty much similar. And our next part of results is that we want to see which dimensions of teacher leadership has our largest association with student achievement. So this figure shows you the mean effect sizes for each dimensions of teacher leadership as well as the confidence interval around it. And we can see that among all 7 dimensions, the 2 dimensions, the facilitating improvement in curriculum instruction and assessment, and also the promoting teacher professional development seems to have the strongest relationship with student achievement. We also tested several moderators to see whether those moderators moderate the relationship between teacher leadership and student achievement. Our result did not support the assumptions that the relationship between teacher leadership and student achievement differ between studies which conceptualize teacher leadership in different ways. And we also didn't found evidence to support that there is a difference between difference between teacher leadership and the student achievement between the elementary and the secondary schools, or among studies that used the 3 different types of outcome measures. So, and then now I want to invite Dr. Shen back to for the discussion point.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wu, for going through the study very efficiently and very clearly. Thank you. So, in terms of discussion point, then as the purpose of this paper reveals that this study provides a synthesized evidence that link teacher leadership and student achievement. So before that, there's certainly kind of different evidence here and there, and this is a place where we meta-analyzed it. So we have synthesized the evidence. The second is that we teased out 7 dimensions of teacher leadership. Table 1 in the paper actually listed close to 10 sources in terms of different frameworks in teacher leadership, and we distilled them to 7, and we found out that these 7 are indeed related to student achievement. So certainly it does not exclude other efforts, but certainly provide a base to focus on certain areas. Then the third point is that because there's so much literature out there, so a meta-analysis like this it would be a go-to source for research policy and practice. So when we write a research paper, then this will certainly provide some evidence to set a paper, and it could be for policy briefs and also for the content policy as well. Then for practice, and certainly that's related to the second point, has great implications as well. Then we envision that in the future, then our whole field will continue to explore those efficacious dimensions of teacher leadership. Then at a certain point, this kind of meta-analysis will come back again and to synthesize. So we go out to do those divergent things. Then we come back convergently, come to some quote unquote consensus, as this could be one great way for moving forward. Next slide, we will talk about 2 aspects that we feel could continue to advance this line work. One is, as we know, in terms of principal leadership, then we have so much research. We do principal leadership, how that's related to school process, how that's related to school outcomes, including student learning. In our field, in this case, we feel if there's some kind of indirect correlation between teacher leadership and student learning, learning, that would be great. So that's kind of still a big black box we can all look into to advance the field. Then also causal studies, we find out there are very few. The studies we use, they're essentially all correlational. And so if our field work together, use some statistical techniques, design techniques to do some causal study, that would be great. Sarah, whose paper is going to coming up, is actually a great effort moving toward that direction. And Sarah, you're a leader on that. With that, then Dr. Reeves will give us talk through the last slide we have, which is the continuing line of work on teacher leadership our team here at Western Michigan University has been doing. Dr. Reeves, please. Reeves.
You're muted, Dr. Reeves.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Shen and Dr. Wu, for sharing the details of this particular study. Our team at Western Michigan University has incorporated the findings of the study you just heard into a larger line of inquiry where we're looking at school-wide leadership and leadership practices that with evidence of impact on student achievement. And we're doing that through 3 federal grants in particular, 2 from the Seed Grant Program and 1 from Promise Neighborhood, using controlled studies to test out a model for high impact leadership that looks at the leadership practices of principals and teachers together with school-wide leadership influence. And then making sure that we are focusing on what schools are implementing and how they're using that leadership to implement with both integrity and fidelity. Under some very distinct definitions we have theorized for implementation, integrity, and fidelity. And so far, we have been able to identify statistically significant growth in student ELA proficiency and in principal and teacher or school-wide leadership on validated measures. And we're continuing that work with a second seed grant study under another controlled study. And that wraps up our presentation.